test just for like a situation, and the card itself should just be stock arena. We'll double check sometimes. They've had it, but one of the cool things that we've been getting into news is the new Threadripper series, the I guess entry level. A lot of people have been saying like the lower line, but it's kind of hard to call a Threadripper a lower line. But the 3000 series, what they've been getting into, is going to be like roughly around like November, which is going to be cool. And then that buys some time to probably around like the CES around the 2020 mark, where we can see clearly if we're going to be having more of the I guess Threadripper line come out, which is exciting for me. But I have a feeling what they're going to try to do is they're going to break it off into two tiers, which isn't that bad. They're going to stay true to the people. Oops, an error occurred. What happened here? Let's just try that again. We'll see what happens here. But one of the things that I was looking into of like the builds that were coming into play is that there's two chiplets in circulation in the motherboard. I believe there's an 80 and a 40. So I think that they might be moving up to two tiers of like, if you wanted the 3264, you'd probably have to invest into like a new board set, kind of like how Intel ended up doing like their jump over, and Threadripper had its competitionable point with that. You know, there's going to be a new, I think, architecture to host that, which would make sense, quite frankly. Now, in the ultimate builds of what we can be seeing and like the adaptability of what's coming out in probably November, I'd probably like to think that we're going to be seeing a lot more when it comes down to the situation of, I suppose, entry level portions of what are going to mean the same consistent entry of what we've seen before, and it pushing forward with the lovely portion of like what we've invested into. I don't think AMD is going to take that away from us. I think that would be wrong in a lot of ways. They would they'd probably lose a lot of I guess trust within the industry, and they've gained a lot of ground. And Intel themselves, even what they've been pushing out, like the new I guess refresh of like what the 67 line was basically in that introduction of, and like doubled the production value of that. It's actually not too bad, but the only thing else they can offer is like, oh, we can get this 97K all overclocked factory, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. It just creates a lot more heat, and a lot of them can do that already past that. There's nothing that they haven't already done new. So that's where a lot of people, a lot of other social creators have just been kind of like knacking on that situation of just like, well, you know, what are we really going to see from the industry as it really starts to kind of give us like more of a, I guess, lackluster of where's the Wizard of Oz? Where are we gonna get this like lovely portion of like, you know, Intel striking back and like really doing it a good job? So we'll see. I don't know. Like I'm assuming that like probably later on down the road we might see more developed chips from them, just in that standpoint. And if anyone noticed, I did mess with the color midway through the stream just because I didn't really like the physical portion. What are you doing? You're acting so weird. Workload. It's like froze or something like that. Huh. Oh well. Oh, I've gotten some inside of there. So you know what? Let's just go to the install. I at least ran a few tests right before prior that we can always match up back to back at that portion in time. So let's go ahead and get to our physical news. As you can see, we already have this already pulled out right here. It definitely does seem like itself is needing a refresh. I don't know why the graphics card is seeming really crazy, but that's why I'm going to the Wattman. See if maybe some kind of weird overclock is still in place. Oh, there we go. It found itself to be unsuccessful. Okay, with that successful portion, hey, let's go ahead and get rid of that. See if I can. Actually, can't cancel. That just seems frozen in time. I'm just saying let's do the refresh. Like just do the update. And then we can go to like the actual physical patch notes a little earlier than normal. Keep this one pretty short. Nothing super crazy. And I can match those with what I ran earlier, which were consistent. So our release notes, as we're able to pull these directly up here, which isn't too bad. Like I like to think that like AMD does a decent job, not as good as Nvidia. I like to think that Nvidia does a killer job when it comes down to like portionable points of, I guess bang for buck when you get like your updates and stuff like that. But the majority of this is like Gears of War, as I put in the description, is up to the 8% of the performance where you're able to improve that during the renovation of the DirectX 12 on the Radeon software Adrenalin, the 2019 version, like which is very interesting because I'm assuming in 2020 that's what we'll get, and they're getting down to quarters. So, like, I think I figured out their breakdown. It's like basically year 19 month, um, I guess this September, so it's 9, and then like week 1. That's where they get that versus the August the 2nd, week 2. So they have breakdown SKUs of like where they kind of like give into, so where I've kind of like done enough patch notes to kind of see like what exactly they're doing that in their own little coding. But the add-on to the Vulkan support is probably one of the more crucial points where a lot of people were very happy, but more of the memory devices and the adding of the device portions of the uncached memory types. So I mean, when you have the lower performance from the general access and the portions of the unsuccessful certain like scenarios and these like they're gonna try to fix them, but like AMD themselves, it's kind of making me wonder like where the Radeon 7 card's going. They just like kind of like officially made it like almost retired, but now like where a lot of people bought in, like myself and other people who have like lodged into the forums before in the past, have wondered like, well, what's gonna happen like with like the future of this? Like I bought into this hoping that like we would get to more of a like future portion of like me having more installments, and here we are like we're seeing Navi take off and all these other portions, but this is it's adding its timestamp to like a newer version and trying to probably balance out both is more than likely. But these raise like a lot of good questions in that standpoint, but pushing on past that, where the calibration timestamp, the line, and the shaders, and the more texturizing portions of where Vulkan support can add in more faster frame rates. You're looking at now like the portion of the fixed issues that we're getting out. Now the launched RGB Fusion 2.0 may have caused the system hang up on the RX 5700 series graphics production and the configuration. Now some people did leave some comments in the portion prior to that, where they were asking like, hey, like this was happening with my RGB. So definitely did seem like the 19.8.2 definitely did have that effect. So if you're having the same effect with the 19.9.1, try a clean install. So go to custom, and it should give you a clean install. And if you have any like stream settings, you may have to reset your HTCPs, because that might give you a hang up as you're getting the alignment of getting your send feeds. But that's another time for another place. But the HDI is going to have the overscan and the underscan options, and may be missing in the Radeon settings for the Radeon 7, which is my card, the system configuration, and the primary display of the 60 hertz, which is true. Usually it natively wants to go to like about 59, which I always thought was really weird. So it seems like they're just it's missing. I guess they need to fix it, but it's the known issue. The shutter may experience between the Radeon and the FreeSync, and when enabled in the 240 hertz refresh rate on the RX 5700 graphics cards, and that's been a known issue for like a few. I would like to think since like actually a drop bash and the 19.7 saga, July saga basically of updates. Then you look into the points of the performance and the metrics, and maybe reporting incorrect VRAM, which would be more of a situation. Now, the Radeon 7, which is my card, is may experience an elevated memory clock at idle on the desktops, which I do have sometimes, but that's usually when I'm fiddling with it myself. but I haven't really noticed it too much where it's been super like up and down or awry. Looking on past that, where the Radeon overlay may intermediately fail to appear when the toggle in game. So that is kind of a, I hate to say it, it's kind of a bummer thing, but it seems like even Nvidia struggles with that kind of situation. I wouldn't feel like horribly bad for like, it just seems like it's the developer problem in the general standpoint. Um, but I don't know. I don't code, not yet at least. But past that portion where the audio clips in the Radeon Live, which again, it seems like they're ironing out a lot of the battery issues that were there before, and there was a lot of bad issues. Now they just have like more like an audio clips, which is still bad but not horrible. Not horrible compared to the ones I've read before. And then enable the enhanced sync that may cause the game and the applications on the systems to crash on the Radeon 5700 graphics card. Now, again, if you're a faster reader and you're definitely on the run and you want to, I've linked it down in the description where you can really quickly go to the AMD patch notes and just like breeze over it really quick. But past that notes, there's a footnote where they're looking towards the testing and conduction by AMD Performance Labs as of August the 30th, 2019 of Gears of War and the DirectX 12 and the presets of 4K resolution measured on the Radeon 5700 XT. Running in this situation of the software of the 19.8.2 and the 19.9.1, which are the conversion points. The results were showing that this situation was a gain of 8% versus the prior data on the matchable point. Now, again, they are utilizing the Navi unit, and they're using comparison more than likely with Gears of War. And that's one of the things you have to look into, like what's just sad, just like during the majority of updates, sometimes you look into it as most companies will just kind of say like, well, this is my data, but like look where Intel is. They're talking about like saying like, oh, this is like laptop data. It's like, well, yeah, of course it's not going to have Cinnabon just who like uses like two pieces. It doesn't make sense. Touch tablets, no. Like, get your data straight. But I guess resources are probably just being sold at the highest bidding point. They're like, here's a survey. From what? It's a survey of technology. We're not talking about that. What I'm getting at is the Radeon software and the description, which you can basically download directly here if you want to, with this lovely link that's on there. But that's pretty much the patch notes as we get inside of there. So let's go ahead and do our install. We're going to do an express, since I already did a clean install as I did it when I first swapped over the cards, so it wasn't too bad. This should be pretty easy. Let's see here. So cool. As that installs, one of the funner portions of what I can get into in that situation of what we're looking at with the Radeon card. I am excited to see where more of the, I guess the 3950X, which I kind of feel like is the replacement to my chip. Like they just basically downsized it into like a normal size, like competitive point. 16 cores is very good. Now, will the clock speeds be up there? I don't know. Ryzen has been obviously one of the battles that they've been running into is like trying to meet those like clockable points, which doesn't seem like where a lot of them have been hitting, unfortunately. Now, under what circumstances they basically been reporting that and other things, then that's on them. But I do feel like the public is owed an answer for the situation of why it's being said that these situations are coming up like this. I'm sure in due time they'll kind of get into like where we will see the answers on that situation. AMD's usually pretty forthright with being like, yeah, by the way, so this is why. Like, oh, cool. That's why. Good to know. I'm really interested to see like where they take the line of the next generation of like PCIe 4 entertainment, like with Navi on the run and the Titan Killer basically on the horizon for AMD, which is really interesting that they even have a card that has that pet name onto it. I was watching Red Gaming Tech and like honestly, it was really interesting to hear his commentary on top of the other portion. Now it seems like we've done our perfect install. Let's go ahead and hit a reset. And I'm okay with this portion right now. Yeah. Alright. Shouldn't be much longer, and then we can run our first benchmark, hopefully complete. With this fresh install, that'll be perfect. Open. Routine venture. Gotta give it a second. Overclock kicks in and then kind of takes itself off. Did it like a fresh install? Reset. It's taking a little awfully long. Greater than what it's supposed to. There we go. Maybe it was resetting a lot of things that went wrong from the last one. So. Usually with like the more latter end of this year's like Adrenalin installs, seeming like well, they're a little bit delayed on the resets. Don't be too alarmed if it takes a little bit longer. Be alarmed if it goes for like 30 minutes. Then yeah, that's really normal. At least for mine, it isn't. For 2950X, which is saying a lot. That's a pretty big processor. But let's go ahead and get into what we are going to. Alright, cool. I gotta catch my VPN Nord before it like destroys itself. It seems like the audio mic turned off itself, but like it seems like for the most part the Radeon card like lies between like the 70 to 80 mark on decibels if you like play a different note on like overclocks. Okay, so go ahead and you are regular. It should just already be, since it's reinstalled, it went to restore to normal. Shouldn't be overclocked at all, and we'll double check that after a test. I'm really trying to keep this episode under 30 minutes. I feel like I can do that. Alright, so should be loading in. Once it loads in, I'll feel a little bit more safer about this. Cool. Yes, yes, yes. Benchmark. Go to our first one. We'll run just Fire Strike, bare minimum. Something that wouldn't even cause a disrupt. This is just 1080p basics. And then one of the other cool tests that I have done was time spy. So we can look at those results with it past and present. Overclocks real quick because it should list off the last few ones. I just had to run one benchmark in order to look at the prior benchmarks. Seems like the temperature isn't that bad though, honestly. With it when underclocked, you'd think nowadays is my case it doesn't struggle. That doesn't look as overbearing as before it did. The first test I was like, oh my, before it would have crashed. It was just so red and overbearing. The colors crashed the lovely update. Just have a tour. You can definitely see where it spikes up pretty fast. It went up like almost 3 points on Celsius. It keeps freezing up every single time when it goes into the 3D Mark workload. It's never really done this before. That's so interesting. Getting shy. I guess we'll give it a few, you know, give it about 30 seconds to kind of mile that data over. But other fun news in the tech industry is obviously a lot of legality portions have been at question with a lot of the major players from like Intel to um, not too much of other companies. I think AMD was involved with their fair share and they finally paid out with, I guess, the advertisement of something in the very past. Then Nvidia was under fire for majority of their technology. Same thing with Asus, like a few other companies that were like board runners. They basically had this. You know, that's so weird. Let's go ahead and hot refresh. And that's two in a row before and after an update. That is very rare that it would be, but let me open the Wallman after I go into that and see if something failed. And that might be a big indicator of what's going down. It could just be the card itself just like not really digging like the latter end of the updates. It seems like with the Navi introduced, it's added a little instability with the Radeon card. Unfortunately, Vega 2 hasn't really adapted really well to the RDNA. I would like to think. I mean, they've had good runs. It definitely is a lot better than what it first started with. They, you know, push forward on the FPS, but when it comes down to like benchmark conundrums. Now let me open up Steam first. Maybe Steam's needing to update, and it's just like it's being tired and punk. Very true. Stuff like that happens, but the first score I got basically from like TimeSpy was like 9,100, and that was in a variation of my 2950X. That's why I had to run a few other benchmarks prior to have them to comparison because I wouldn't have anything. It would be between my 67K powering it last time. So both of those have like a different direct effect onto the card, as well as the resulting score because due to a bigger portion of processing. No, it should just automatically. I'm also going to open up Steam. I just didn't want it to think it was alone. Since I obviously have done a time spy and it worked last time, I'm just gonna run a time spy rather than Firestrike. Maybe something's wrong with Firestrike. Could just be their server on it, like where it's uploading. It's just like tired or something like that. So we'll just keep it to what I know that worked. I know this worked last time, and if we do the extreme, then we can end it with that. A nice overclock. Keep it under like maybe 30 to 40 minutes. Oh, and it got me with the demo. Oh, I guess this is gonna take a lot longer. That is like a. That's one thing I really do wish I could turn off permanently. That would be really, really great. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not gonna do like the demo, but I don't think this is the graphics test one. All right. Very time consuming. So first test, and like just for the like straight out the gate and not overclocked, it's fighting in the 50s, which isn't too bad. Usually it's already almost in there anyways, but like this is what I was wondering for as it accelerates up, because a lot of the turning radius point and rendering, a lot of that was fixed, then it should have fixed a lot of that situation. So like that's not too bad. We'll see what happens when the score comes into play though. Sometimes just spot checking with your eye isn't always as good versus like spot checking with an actual piece of technology with an algorithm. I never really noticed how well diversified in culture this museum is. I was like, wow, it's actually pretty cool. Radeon, that was a very interesting time to tell me about the update during an update. Come on, buddy. Make my GPU score test go down. That exhibit probably is one of the ones that like interests me the most. Alright, it seems like we're roundabouting our last final test and entry. Okay, so with that being done, we should be able to roundabout past the just normal CPU test, which should be pretty quick. This one I have faith in, like my 2950X. If we don't get a direct comparison where it's like it's actually been able to receive a little bit more over what it's normally right here, I would assume at the minimum point is that at least Gears of War in its software is going to react to this update really well. One could hope. One could hope. Alright, so cool. It really was just Fire Strike. And it looks like I dropped one, but the Radeon kind of butted in on that. I don't feel like that was really fair. So I feel like we would have, since that's so close, I kind of feel like we could have got a marginal point of bump in like performance. And see why. So like pay attention to me. Oh, the Wattman failed. No wonder. Alright, let's go ahead and get our first overclock then. You know what? I should probably base this off of auto clocks rather than going towards the other thing, because then I can get the stability of what they're doing. I can always do mine in a separate episode if everyone really craves my own overclocks. That could be its own thing. So since it's applied, let's go ahead and back out and run the test again. And then we'll run extreme. And I'm not going to touch Fire Strike just because it seems like it's a hot mess. We'll keep it at that portion of the episode. I really forget that there's sometimes there's a monster in the background, but it's just like really big looking Titan thing that you would see from Final Fantasy. And it got me with the demo again. Crap. I can't believe I didn't click off the demo. That's one of the more annoying things. I think I might be able to back out of this, but it may trip out OBS. And I have to reset the whole darn program. Okay, cool. You just gotta press escape. It has some newer portion of ribbon across it, so maybe they changed something. So much diversity in that little area. Just like I'm hoping that 16 gigabytes will pay off in the diversity when it comes down to owning like this Radeon 7 card. And I'm really curious to see what the Sapphire actually ends up having. Like I saw that come to market, and that one's like roughly around like almost like 1200. And like there's no more real Radeon cards out there. And even the Bauer was mentioning that like pushing in the limits of like the normal stock Radeon cards. So it's like what's the difference? Really curious. Oh my, you can hear the decibels are louder than normal. So this is when you hit peak volume around like the 70, like 57-ish mark. The idle, rather, versus this time it's like 76. I feel like this test reminds me a lot of the Exploratorium. Like its own attributes of science and space and very theatrical portions of history. It's very fun and to come into like that standpoint. I wonder how long it would have taken them to actually put that whole thing together right there. I feel like that'd be like a Lego project for a lot of people. That always reminds me of like Fallout, Power Armor, stuff. It's handling it really well, honestly. Seems like a lot of the turning base in like the last update to this update, it's been a bigger improvement. But at the same time, that could just be my actual Threadripper and AMD working really well in their own Infinity Fabric. I've noticed that before, where it throws stuff around it really well. Okay, and with that comes in the first portion of the score. So that was actually a pretty good overclock, just with it just in its own standpoint, which is probably like the 1900s in the bandwidth. it was able to physically get a lot more in the headroom of almost like roughly about almost like 360, 380. Hey, RX benchmarks, how you doing, man? I cannot play any games with my RX 57 because of the Wattman error and freezing and everything. They did address some of that they were trying to get into it. Like if you're having an error with that, one of the things I had with what was it, the software for the CPU? I had to install the master freaking program that they have. Jeez Louise, I'm totally forgetting what it's called. But it's like it's dashboard for it, and like I literally had to uninstall and reinstall it sometimes. Like it just it's finicky, like especially when it comes down to like a lot of like errors I've noticed even like with my card and the Radeon, like since Navi's introduction. So it's like they are working on it, and I'm assuming they're probably gonna have like a cleaner format with this one. So try a clean install. If it doesn't work from there, then definitely like I would say at that point in time, go back to the consistent update, like the 19.5.2. That one's a pretty good one. If you've already had it installed, it will run your card pretty well. But it seems like a lot of the variants over the last 3 months that they've done have been like more tuning towards Radeon 7 and the 5700's introduction in line of partner cards that have been introduced. Let's go ahead and see what I can do for one last really cool benchmark, since for some reason Fire Strike's acting like a little punk. We'll just go to the extreme version and see what it looks like in 4K and push the card to the max. But I really like this like update. It seems smoother, a lot smoother than like the August update. Seems like August they were just like really desperately trying to dial in stuff with Navi, and rightfully so. They made a lot of good promises, and then now they're trying to mop up the portion with the CPU market, with it not hitting the 5 GHz, which is a huge conundrum. Like that sucks that like the like posted like I think the Bauer got like almost like 30,000 people, or it was like 3,000 somewhere around there. It was like a pretty big number. He was just able to like get everything in together and just like being like, yeah, this is what's going down. This is the reality that only 2% are hitting the advertised boost clock. Oh man, you can hear the decibels of about 60, no longer, but 70 to 80, yes. But that frame rate is consistent. That's one thing I do like about it. Before, when I first got this card in this scene, it would be like, if I was lucky, maybe like 28, 25. For 4K, and it's moving its frame rate now between 30 to 35, maybe gained in solid 10 FPS through time. That's pretty good. I do expect more, hopefully, in the near future. I'm sure a lot of people expect a lot more, like where the market would be going. So, I'm starting to say like this update honestly versus the last one I did, like which I had a horrible experience, such a long part one, part two, consistency of the last patch, but this one I like it. I definitely like the 19.9.1. Seemed like it was a smooth install. Besides a few errors with Firestrike, which could just be the yawning errors of it integrating with this driver, which I always notice that AMD and Firestrike don't get along sometimes in the very beginning. It's just the way things go down. It's very interesting, but it is what it is. Alright, cool. This was what I was waiting for when we go up this here. Part up here, we should get up to 30, hopefully. Cool. Every single time I see, hey, what's going down? 117 in the house. It's been a good second, man. Hopefully, when this catches up to you, because it's a huge delay. I'm doing this in limitless and utilizing some crazy settings. So yeah, it might just be a second before this catches up, but hopefully everyone that's joining in, thank you so much. Like tech community that's subscribed to this network, I definitely do appreciate all the hard dedication of watching these ones, and I'm sure NVIDIA is gonna fire back with another portion of an update, which will be coming in pretty soon for us. But hey, I'll leave it at this portion of like where we're wrapping up towards the tail end, and we finish this test. But if you are new to the network and you are definitely watching this in the future, or right now at the point in time, you can always subscribe. It's absolutely free. And if you do, I will watch an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. That'd be awesome. Really cool to watch. Absolutely. Join the M7 community. Who knows? But I definitely love doing these updates. I'm always up to like AMD tech, figuring out what's happening in the first 24 to 48 hours, what's happening, or following people that are in that whole ring of like what's on the up and up with technology as it like gets thrown around to us in pixels. Speaking of pixels, there's like pixels like struggling across the ground over here. Not too shabby. But let's go ahead and compare some scores. Compared to like my RTX card. I mean, if you look at this in the bracket, I mean, that's not good in the situation. It's like pretty mediocre. I would like to think in that situation for as far as time strike. If I had two of them, maybe it might make a dent. But if you look at the details, it's like I'm decent, future proof, yes. But look at that. Look at the gap. This card where it is, there's no real big gap except for this. Somehow get up to there at that point in time. But look at my results at that point in time. So you can see where I first did the first test before I started this stream. And then again right here where we have this with one off. Then I do the overclocks and the portion right there. So I have my time spy portions, and of course I've always been running here and there. This was my swap over with my RTX, now chilling in with my i7 6700K, which I really am curious to see what the X is going to do. Like when that comes out, hopefully tail end of this year. They kind of introduce a whole bunch of stuff, but you can kind of see I've swapped in and out like a few different cards. And as you look at the very stock portion of where my NVIDIA is, the Threadripper, it's like decent. Time Spy was right there. You can see about the 9200 versus, and these are overclocks at that portion. So for that to go up right here, and now I'm pushing that, this is finally the update that I kind of wanted, to have the card kind of spread its wings out to get a little bit more FPS, a little bit more performance in a wide-rounded market. So it should perform really well, and I'm curious to hear what a lot of people have to say about it. So if you are watching this and drop a comment on the comment board once this gets posted and it goes live portion of past that. And cool thing is, and if you're curious what my technology of build is, you can definitely look in the descriptions. I've linked everything down below. You can even build my whole computer if you want, the lovely Threadripper that this AMD is running directly on. But let's go ahead and do one more benchmark, just because I do see some people piling up, and that'll be the last test. We're going to make one last attempt to see if this wants to work. And we'll go ahead and go with the normal fire strike. See if for some reason it'll work. I don't know, it might not, just because the last 2 to 3 times it didn't post. It'd be nice to get like one test instead of here. Usually fire strike's a pretty big number, just because it's fire strike. It's insane. Really good. And with the clocking portion of it being overclocked, we should already be getting like a pretty decent, like about the 8%. I mean, I kind of feel like they really did dial in that 8%, where it was just like, okay, I think that that's a fair 8%. Like, and it wasn't just for gears. Seems like they just made that like broader portion with like a more heftier portion of the RDNA integration with like the original like GCN technology that they had. But it's really cool to kind of see where it's like even like the 6700K processor that I have, which is Intel, like that's only like maybe like 4 to 5 years ago that we were looking at that technology coming out, and now we're looking at refreshes and generations gone past. So it's like I'm very excited to see where both companies go in leaps and bounds, and more excited to see what happens at the end of this year. Man, but there's gonna be a lot of technology like slamming into like this whole portion of the 2019 tail end. And I think it did what it was supposed to do, what it did last time. So something's wrong with the AMD patch, and it seems like more than likely Fire Strike. Well, at least we were able to prove it with the portion of the integration of Time Spy. At least one of the tests worked. It definitely seems like the consistency of 3D Mark and its workload are just it's not digging life right now. As you can see, it's been frozen in my patch. But thank you so much, everyone, for staying tuned and like being a part of this live stream at this portion in time. I myself will be definitely enjoying this patch, and hopefully everyone else will do as well. So, if you again are new to the network, definitely drop a like, a share, and a subscribe. And if you are a returning M7 community member, cheers! I appreciate you guys and gals always spending some time on this channel, which is pretty cool. So, thank you so much, and I'll see you for the future patch. Hopefully week 2, we'll see kind of like maybe if they drop it. If not, week 3, and we'll go from there. Which is really interesting. They had week 5, but I guess that's the tail end where they're just like kind of like, whatever. We'll just put 5 because I do notice they get the variations of that, but it probably goes off of a skew of days or something like that. But anyways, everyone, I'll see you guys and gals.